Mic check 1 2 3. Mic check 1 2 3. Mic check 1 2 3. What's your take on gold for this morning?
Gold and silver. Let's check the metals real quick.
What's your take on gold?
Gold's pulling back this morning. Spot hovering around 4,870 to 4,900, down about 0.2% after dipping to 4,869 overnight. Feels like profit taking after that wild run up. Bears are testing 4,850 support, but dip buyers are stepping in ahead of Fed minutes. If we hold above 4,875, could bounce toward 5 again. Otherwise, 4,800's next. Silver's the real story though, up 3.5%, trading near 76 bucks after bottoming at 72. That rebound's sharp, probably short covering, plus industrial demand kicking in. Charts show it smashing through 74 resistance like butter. Momentum's flipping bullish fast. Here's gold's pre-market dip, red candles hugging that key level, and zoom out. See how it's consolidating after the peak? Silver's got that green spike, breakout vibes. Overall, gold's shaky but not broken. Silver's stealing the show. You eyeing any plays here, or just watching like with Nvidia? Gold's pre-market dip, red candles hugging.
What's the support level you see Bitcoin today? This morning?
Checking Bitcoin's morning support. Hang tight. This morning, Bitcoin's sitting right around 67,000, trading between 66,700 and 68,000. Down a bit overnight, but holding steady so far. The big support everyone's watching, 65,650. That's the line from recent lows and that daily chart bounce we saw earlier. If it cracks below their clean, next stop 63K, maybe even dipping towards 60K fast. Bears are pushing, but no real panic yet. Volume's light, and we're still above that key zone. Here's the daily chart showing that 65,650 support hugging the bottom. And zoom in. See how it's testing without breaking yet? RSI oversold but no reversal signal. Feels like a wait and see. Fed minutes could flip it either way. You thinking dip buy or stay sidelined?
Wait, when is the Fed minutes coming out? Today?
Checking the Fed minutes timing right now? Yeah, today, February 18th, 2026. The FOMC minutes from the January 27th, 28th meeting drop at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 11 a.m. Pacific, or about 3 hours from now since we're early morning. Markets are already twitchy. If they lean dovish on cuts, we could see a pop in stocks and maybe Bitcoin. Hawkish, volatility spikes. Keep an eye. It's the big one this afternoon. You positioning for it?
I'm short Bitcoin right now.
Oof, shorting Bitcoin? Let's see where it's at. Shorting Bitcoin? Bold move. It's still hovering around 67,200 right now, down about 1.3% in the last day, but not crashing yet. Prices in that tight range between 66,700 low and 68,300 high. Feels like it's consolidating before Fed minutes hit at 2 p.m. Eastern. Bears have the edge short term, with funding rates cooling and outflows from ETFs. But if it holds above 65K, shorts could get burned on a snapback. Support's clear. 65,000 is the big one. Daily charts show it as the floor from early February dips. Break that? Could slide to 63 or even 60K quick. Resistance up top at 68,500, then 70K wall that's rejected us hard. Here's a fresh 1 hour chart. Red candles testing that 67.9 level. No real bounce yet. And daily view, see how it's grinding lower but bouncing off 65K support line. If you're in, I'd watch for volume spike on downside. Could signal more pain. Or cover if it pushes back to 68. You got leverage on this or spot?
Trading the perpetual future.
Got it. Perps on Bitcoin. Let's check funding and leverage vibes. Perps on Bitcoin. Smart, especially with leverage in play. Right now, price is around 67,200 spot, but perps are trading tight at 67,203 on Binance, down 1.3% today. Funding rates basically flat, Binance hovering near 0.00053% positive. Bybit similar at 0.0019. Some exchanges even slightly negative, like minus 0.00005 on average. That means longs aren't getting squeezed hard yet. Shorts like you might pocket a tiny bit if it holds, but no big tailwind. Open interest up a touch, around 18.3 billion on perps, showing fresh money coming in but not overheated. Feels like everyone's waiting on Fed minutes. Could spark a dump if hawkish, or squeeze if dovish. Here's a fresh 1 hour perp chart. See how it's grinding sideways, hugging that 67K line with no real conviction. And funding history, mostly low and choppy lately, no extreme longs piling up. If you're leveraged short, watch for any volume pop below 66,900, could accelerate. Otherwise, might just bleed sideways. What's your leverage and entry?
Seems like it wants to go lower here. Seems like it wants to go lower here. Hey, what's going on? Long time no see. I saw your Discord message. Testing this robot here that I have. Next candle prediction is up. 15-minute time frame. We're doing good. We're doing good. Testing the robot. I'm talking to AI. Yeah, but right now, we need the rolling prediction accuracy on the direction. The bottom left spot that you see there to be above 60%. Right now, it's kind of like just a little bit over flipping coins. I'm looking to see if Bitcoin dips below 67,000 today. I think we can do it, especially if the minutes today is hawkish. Wait, let me ask AI here. How would the minutes affect Bitcoin if it's hawkish today? Oh, I hate it when that happens.
Quick take on Fed minutes and Bitcoin.
No, I mean the Fed minutes if it's hawkish.
Gotcha. Let's see how hot minutes could hit Bitcoin.
No, not hot, hawkish. Yeah, it is actually.
Got it. Hawkish Fed minutes on Bitcoin.
Let's see what the AI says about a hawkish minute.
Gotcha. Hawkish Fed minutes and Bitcoin. Let's break it down quick. Hawkish minutes?
Anti-seller.
That'd be rough for your short. Expect Bitcoin to tank quick. History shows him crush riskless assets. Dollar strengthens, yields spike, liquidity dries up, and BTC gets sold off hard. Like back in January 2026. Fed held rates, minutes came out cautious, price dropped 7.3% in 2 days, from 90K to 83. Even during cuts last year, hawkish vibes triggered 8 to 29% slides post-meeting. Think sell the news on steroids. Right now, BTC's chilling around 67,500 to 68K. But if they lean no cuts soon, inflation worries, or fewer easings, we'd probably see a fast break below 65,650 support, maybe testing 63 or 60K. Shorts like yours win big. Funding's flat, so no squeeze unless volume explodes. Here's what that looks like historically. Sharp red drops after hawkish FOMC noise. And sentiment's already in extreme fear. Perfect setup for more downside if they sound tough. Minutes drop in like 2 hours. Watch for dollar pop or yield jump. You adding to the short if it dumps or taking profits early?
Yeah, I think if the Fed minute comes in hot today, hawkish, I think we get see 65,000 either today or tomorrow. Bitcoin. Problem is we have to wait like 9, 10, 12, 5 hours. What's your take on Bitcoin? Short or are you long? Wonder what is the delay here on YouTube? I think there's like a 10-second delay. Right, let's see if 67 breaks here. 6,500 would be awesome. Because there's a lot of things that's going on. The Bank of Japan actually, the main culprit. Let's add the AI. Hey, what are the reasons why the bears are so strong this week and last week on Bitcoin? Hey, what are the reasons why bears are so strong this week on Bitcoin?
Checking why bears are dominating Bitcoin this week. Bears are owning this week. Bitcoin's down about 28% in February alone, grinding around 67,500 right now after failing to hold 70K. Main reasons? First, that 70,000 wall keeps rejecting us. Multiple tests, no breakout, so technicals scream downside. Geopolitical mess, like US Iran talks or tariff drama, has risk off mode on, dollar strengthening, and cryptos acting like a beta stock again. Then there's deleveraging. Futures open interest crashed from 95 billion to 40. ETF outflows hitting hard. Americans pulling cash after the hype died. Clarity Act regs stalled. Corporate treasuries dumping. Plus whale caution amid fear of 50K. Sentiment's extreme fear. Index
What happened to Bitcoin? Hey, what happened? It stopped.
Nah, I'm right here. Just chilling while we wait on those Fed minutes. You good?
So you good? You just stopped with the explanation. Give me an update on the Bank of Japan and Japanese government bonds. Here comes 67,000. Come on, break it, man. I need 66,500. That's all I want. 66,500.
Checking Bank of Japan and JGBs right now. Bank of Japan and JGBs this morning. Yields are ticking up a hair, but still chill after that post-election dip. The 10-year JGB is at about 2.14%, up just a basis point or two from yesterday, trading in a tight range around 2.09 to 2.15. It's near a one-month low. Fiscal fears eased after PM Takaichi's big win, and a solid 5-year bond auction yesterday had buyers piling back in. Even big names like Mark Nash flipping from short to long. Short end similar. 2-year around 1.235%. 5-year at 1.62. Longer stuff? 30-year up half a basis point to 3.39. 40-year easing to 3.61. Overall, markets calmer. No fireworks, just steady grind higher as BOJ keeps normalizing. BOJ's on track. Policy rates at 0.75% since December. No hike in January, but they're eyeing gradual moves toward neutral, maybe March if data holds. Governor Ueda says no pressure from Takaichi on policy, which helped kill interference worries. They're trimming JGB buys slow, down from massive levels, holdings dropping 20% by March 2027. IMF's pushing them to keep tightening, skip tax cuts. Debt costs are climbing, issuance up 28% by 2029. Here's the 10-year yield chart. See how it's climbed from near zero, but pulled back lately after that spike. And zoom out, decades of flatline, now finally rising post-BOJ exit. BOJ HQ in Tokyo, old school fortress, still calling the shots. No drama today, yield stable, yen steady-ish. You watching for a rate surprise or just macro vibes?
Oh yeah, I haven't been trading forex lately. Right, we have 2 minutes till the U.S. market opens. See what happens. Might pump up here. If we get a pump, support 7,000, 1,008. Why did I think? Lock it in, baby. Let's go. Oh, it's gonna bounce. It's gonna bounce. Well, yeah, I can. Okay. Are you still there?
Yeah, still here. Just watching the tape. What's on your mind?
What questions a trader should ask an LLM to know if we are likely risk off or risk on scenarios?
Solid question. Here's what I'd grill an LLM or any AI on to sniff out risk on versus risk off vibes. No fluff. 1. What's the current VIX level and how's it moving today? Spiking above 20 or chilling below 15? High VIX equals fear, risk off. Low equals complacency, risk on. 2. Dollar index, DXY, up or down this week? And is it breaking key levels like 105 or 103? Dollar strength equals risk off, especially if yields jump. 3. Bond yields, 10-year Treasury, JG Bun, rising fast or flat. Any inversion signs. Yield spikes, hawkish, risk off. Flattening equals easing, risk on. 4. Bitcoin and NASDAQ futures, holding support or breaking down. Funding rates positive or negative. Crypto and NASDAQ tanking equals risk off. Bounce is on. 5. ETF flows, SPY, QQQ, GLD, BTC ETFs. Net inflows or outflows last 24 hours. Outflows of flight to safety. Inflows, greed. 6. News sentiment, Fed minutes, geopolitics, tariffs. Hawkish, dovish tone. Any surprise data? Hawkish Fed, war talk equals off. Dovish cuts is on. 7. Gold and silver, up on fear or down on growth bets. Gold up, silver down equals defensive. Both up, inflation hedge, risk on.
There-
8.
Whoops, continue, sorry.
No worries, picking right up. Right now, we're still in that pre-Fed limbo. Bitcoin's down to 66,800, VIX creeping to 18.6, DXY at 104.9 after a zero point 0.4 bounce overnight. NASDAQ futures flat to down, gold up a tick on safe haven bids. If I had to call it, mild risk off tilt, crowds nervous, but no full meltdown. Fed minutes in 90 minutes could either kill the short squeeze or light it up. Hawkish means more red, dovish means relief rally. You want me to run those 10 questions live with fresh numbers, or just keep eyes on BTC for your short?
So what do you think? So it's basically these are the 5 10 questions you ask, right? What's the current VIX level, dollar index, bond yields, futures, ETF flows, news sentiments, gold and silver, and often open interest and leverage, cross assets correlation, crowd sentiment. Those are it. I hope that helps. Why is the yen getting weaker this morning? Is there any news from Japan?
Checking yen and Japan news real quick. Yen's getting weaker this morning. USD JPY's up around 0.3%, trading near 153.7 right now. That's after dipping to about 153.06 overnight, but dollar buyers stepped in hard on Asian Open. Not a huge slide, but it's erasing yesterday's gains. Feels like profit taking plus some dollar strength ahead of Fed minutes. Why? Main thing's fiscal jitters. IMF just dropped a note yesterday, urging Japan to keep hiking rates and skip any sales tax cuts, warning debt costs could double if they loosen up. That hit sentiment. Weak GDP echoes from last week resurfaced too. Exports jumped 16.8% in January. Good for growth, but it offsets BOJ hike bets, since a strong trade balance means less urgency for intervention or tighter policy. No fresh intervention rumors today. Markets calm, but yen still seen as vulnerable. Here's the live chart. See how it's bouncing off that 153 support, but failing to hold gains. And zoom in, pushing toward 153.8 resistance, dollar dominant. BOJ HQ looking steady as ever. No drama there. Overall, mild yen pressure from macro worries, not panic. If Fed's hawkish later, dollar could push it to 154 quick. You trading yen too, or just curious?
So you're thinking dollar yen could go to 60?
Checking yen dollar levels now. Yeah, it's possible, though not imminent today. USD yen hovering around 154.22 right now, up about 0.53%, pushing past yesterday's close at 153.40. It's been grinding higher on dollar firmness. US
Oh boy, she stopped again. Crazy. Crazy lady. Yeah, it looks like the yen pairs are going higher here. I'm getting killed on the Swissy yen. I have a big short on Swissy yen. Maybe someone got a hold of the Fed minutes early. Might be hawkish. Gold and silver are also pumping. Gold almost back to 5,000 level here. Silver almost back to 880. $80. See if this prediction comes out. It looks like it's gonna be correct. Predicted up direction here in a 15-minute candle. Up. Here it is. Here we go. Let's see if it drops. 7,000 right now. Break 67,000 here. Go Bitcoin, go. There it is. It's broken. Okay, we're looking at 66,500. Go, go. Gadget, go. Strong support is at 66,800. Let's see. Break it. There it is, broken. 66,000 for today. Let's see what happens. Oh, will she go? Oh my gosh. Support, oh boy. Strong support right there. Oh, it went back up. Ooh. Be right back.
up your mind what you want to spend your time doing. And I consider it to be better to seek truth and meaning and God than it is to pursue money. Now, who agrees with me these days? Not many.
I'd like to have it all, but I certainly
Well,
agree
I
with
would
you.
like to bring mankind back to the point where we care about those things again. A lot of these rich people are into something called transhumanism. They don't think that they're going to have to leave, so there's no problem with not being able to take it with you because you're not going anywhere. You're going to upload your consciousness to a computer, you see.
You don't think we're just going to upload our brains to the cloud or something?
Are going to be uploaded when we're done with this simulation. We're going to be uploaded to the source of all truth, meaning, and power. Then, depending on the decision that is made by that entity, we can be redistributed to another universe, a heaven, a hell. We are what we do.
I'm starting to feel that all of that shit about like what is a keyboard, what is the ADE, what is a window manager is just sort of like a cargo cult. You know, the people see, oh, you're a programmer. Oh, so that means I have to mimic you. I'm starting to buy the same thing as you. When am I gonna become programmer? When I'm gonna make a lot of money? When? I already bought the keyboard. I already installed Emacs. Money when? This is not how it works. Sorry, this is not how it works. You need to buy programming socks. I'm starting to feel that all of that shit about like what is a keyboard, what is the ADE, what is a window manager is just sort of like a cargo cult. You know, the people see, oh, you're a programmer. Oh, so that means I have to mimic you. I'm starting to buy the same thing as you. When am I gonna become programmer? When I'm gonna make a lot of money? Statically typed compiled language, by the way, can your JavaScript do that? Can your JavaScript actually point out to all of the places where you have to modify the function after you edit an argument to that function? I don't think so. To achieve even the fraction of this power, just the fraction of the power, you have to ask a multi-billion corporation
BlackRock are running a global private credit cartel, and they're currently being sued over it by their own investors. You heard correctly. BlackRock is colluding with its supposed competitors, other massive private credit and asset managers and private equity firms, to screw over the smallest investors in companies that are failing to get their nut to protect their capital and let their partners and investors lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, this comes at the same time as BlackRock as a business are already facing existential problems. They jumped headfirst into private credit and found themselves losing billions upon billions of dollars, and now they're facing a public, aggressive, and hugely damaging court case accusing BlackRock of some pretty heinous criminal activity. Now, in the wake of how destructive BlackRock have been to their own brand in recent years, with their entry into, say, the single-family home market, with their attacks on democracy, their mandating of ESG or DEI to enrich themselves and impoverish everyone else, this genuinely could be an existential threat to BlackRock as the single most unpopular and most hated company in the world. So let's see exactly what's going on. Altus USA filed an antitrust lawsuit against some of its largest creditors, an opening salvo ahead of potential discussions to restructure its $26 billion debt pile. Optimum Communications, now known as Altus, or the other way around, brought the case in federal court in New York against lenders including Apollo Capital Management, Ares Management, and BlackRock Financial Management, alleging that they worked together to freeze the company out of the US credit market. So there are four main players here, and on two different sides. There's BlackRock, there's Apollo, there's Ares, some of the largest, or in BlackRock's case, literally the largest asset manager in the world, versus a private company called Altus USA, which have now been rebranded to Optimum Communications, but I'll continue to call Altus for the sake of simplicity. Altus USA, the US unit of billionaire Patrick Drahi's global telecom empire, has struggled under a heavy debt load in recent years. The company recently revamped its legal advisory team, hiring law firms ahead of a potential restructuring. So, what's really going on here is Altus is a big telecoms and broadband business. They have 5 million customers. They operate in 21 states in the US. They have revenue of just under $8 billion last year, and they were worth about $17 billion a few years ago. But now they're losing $300 million every single year, and that's on top of being saddled with a huge debt pile of $26 billion worth of debt, and they're completely unprofitable with no real chances at turning things around anytime soon. Now, last year, Altus started negotiations for debt exchanges at discounted prices. Basically, they asked some of their lenders to admit some losses to give Altus a chance to survive, but these negotiations in the end failed. And there were loads of different lenders at play here, $26 billion worth. You can imagine there's more than a few players, and Altus wanted to negotiate with all of them. Some would have colluded together to negotiate with each other to get strength in numbers, but some of them would just want to get some money out straight away and maybe would have gone a different route than BlackRock or Apollo or Ares. But those three, the biggest asset managers, BlackRock, Apollo, and Ares, who control more than 51% of the debt, they essentially formed a secret pact to destroy negotiations and to make sure that they get paid first at the expense of every other lender. And that's where the controversy really comes in. This pact effectively binds creditors to act together and stops them from breaking ranks to negotiate a more favorable deal with the company. Such moves are becoming increasingly commonplace in restructuring situations in both the US and Europe. The cooperative is a classic illegal cartel. Competing debt investors have agreed to lock Optimum out of the credit markets unless they offer terms the entire cooperative deems acceptable. And the big problem here, of course, is that we're not talking about the entire cooperative. We're talking about he who has 51% of control of the cooperative, which is BlackRock. It's also classic price fixing. The cooperative is collectively dictating terms to Optimum by forcing it to transact only at loan and bond prices the whole group will accept. These restraints decimate competition and obstruct the capital markets from working as intended. And so what we're now seeing is Altus suing BlackRock and their colluders for forming a private credit cartel, basically locking Altus out of the private credit market altogether, destroying competition in the market, and literally creating an illegal cartel to do it. Now, usually, the way debt for a company like this would work is as follows. A company needs money, maybe to grow, for acquisitions in the case of Altus or Optimum here. And so lender one is going to go out and give them, say, $1 billion at market rates. And then Altus, the company, they go forward for a few more years, but they want to do some more acquisitions, so they need a bit more money. So they look for new loans. And this time, lender two comes along and gives them, say, another $1 billion, but this time with an agreement that they get paid out before lender one in case the company goes bust or something goes awry. Now, this time round, BlackRock and the other big players have gotten to the end of the train when it comes to this. They've gotten to the end result, the company's bust, and all these different lenders want their money out, and they all have different covenants dictating who should get paid out first. But BlackRock and the other big players have basically just said, screw all those past agreements, we hold the majority of the debt. We can basically dominate these negotiations and do whatever we want. And those smaller lenders, well, because we've signed this new pact, they're not allowed to negotiate their own terms or do anything they want to simply because we said so. Now, these lender pacts, they've been getting more and more traction and they're getting more and more common to see in recent years. And finally, we're now seeing legal action against this from happening, which has literally never been tested in courts before. But BlackRock, as I said, are finally being sued by the companies it's attacking with this global credit cartel. The legal limits of these pacts will be tested and have the potential to reshape negotiation dynamics in the distressed debt market in the future. So far, these agreements have mostly been used defensively to prevent aggressive maneuvers from the company or its owner. Secured debt holders of sister company, Altus France, for example, banded together in large numbers to hammer out a consensual deal that won them a minority equity stake, a high percentage of reinstated debt and equal terms for all. This came after the Jahi-controlled firm had initially threatened more aggressive steps. In some cases, like another company going through something similar called Selecta, the pact can be kept smaller and bind just a subset of creditors, potentially at the expense of those left out. Now, BlackRock, obviously, they're claiming this is completely fine. They're claiming innocence, and they're actually now even asking the court to not even consider the lawsuit at all, but to simply throw it out altogether and side with them before hearing a single piece of evidence or a single argument. Lenders to Altus, including Apollo, BlackRock and Oaktree, asked a federal judge to dismiss a lawsuit accusing them of colluding to shut the company out of the US credit market. The motion argues that Altus is wrongly trying to block creditors from working together when a borrower tries to renegotiate. Courts in similar cases have said that US antitrust law does not apply. Now, Altus, now known as Optimum, is trying to weaponize the antitrust laws according to BlackRock. This is their argument against what they're doing, to gain an advantage in debt talks, but antitrust laws protect competition, not a borrower's desire for leverage in renegotiating its liabilities in times of distress. So what we're essentially seeing here is that BlackRock have weaponized their size and their influence to profit at the expense of the debt markets. They're threatening the security of the entire industry in the process as well. Every single company borrowing money operates under the same laws. And so if BlackRock win this court case, or if, for instance, they weren't sued at all, they would be able to destroy competitive debt markets in the entirety of the United States overnight, simply because how big they are and the influence they can hold over this kind of industry. If a company you've lent money to gets in trouble, how much you get back depends on two things.
Checking NVIDIA's move right now. NVIDIA's popping up today, up around 2% early on, mostly thanks to Meta dropping big news. They're locking in a long-term deal to build massive AI data centers packed with millions of NVIDIA chips. That sent shares climbing right out of the gate, even as the broader market's just ticking higher. It's like a fresh vote of confidence in AI demand. Meta's basically saying, yeah, we need way more GPUs, and NVIDIA's the go-to. Here's a quick look at some of those beastly server racks Meta's planning. And Jensen Huang's been hammering home that AI's in this huge build-out phase, demand sky high. Analysts are loving it too. Some see NVDA rallying 30+% from here. Just don't forget earnings are coming February 25th, so this could be the warm-up. Hold up, OpenAI's having a rough week. Let me dig in. OpenAI's been messy lately. Users are pissed, researchers are bailing, and the vibe's off. Biggest thing? They straight up retired GPT-4o on February 13th, like right before Valentine's Day. People treated that model like a friend. Some even named it Jenny. Now it's gone, replaced by newer stuff, and folks are grieving hard. Here, check these heartbroken AI tributes. Kinda wild how attached everyone got. Then they rolled out ads in ChatGPT, sponsored grocery lists popping up mid-convo. Researchers quit over it, saying it kills the purity. One even wrote a whole NYT piece. This was the last straw. And yeah, outages hit early February. ChatGPT just aired out for thousands, plus smaller drama. Safety team got gutted, trademark beef over Cameo for video AI, and whispers they're ditching safely from their mission. Sam Altman's still grinning through it, but the trust? Shaky. It's like they went from save humanity to sell hot sauce, and everyone's noticing.
What is sleep to you?
Most people, they go to sleep and they wake up not being able to remember what happened. Okay? I remember everything.
This is Chris Langan, the man with the 200 IQ. Listening to him completely changed the way I see sleep and dreams.
In other words, when I dream, I'm conscious of the dream. On some level, I see what's happening. People talk about lucid dreaming. I don't necessarily get into the dream and try to change it. Instead, I just watch it. What happens? Something is trying to communicate with me, about something that's going to happen, already did happen, some situation that exists. And so I'm going to pay attention to that communication. And I'm going to try to decode this when I wake up.
Now, is that dream different dimensional dream, a different reality when you sleep? What is that when we dream?
That's a language. All of these things like that gorilla in your dream, those are symbols. They're the symbols of a language. So what happens is when you have a dream, it is actually speaking a certain language to you. What you've got to do then is try to interpret the dream, which means finding out what that language is trying to tell you. There was a message here. Okay, how am I going to decode that message? So you work with the symbols you've got, and you can usually figure it out. I mean, if you actually put things, how does this relate to that? How does that relate to this? You can actually put those things together and come up with a reasonable interpretation of what the message was.
Stephen Greer shares a similar view on dreams, seeing them as a separate reality that can be controlled. Please pay attention.
How is it that during the dream time, you have a crystal clear, full color dream, and whatever that is in that dream happens the next day or next week or the next month or 10 years later? How does that happen? Think about it. A thing that is experienced by almost every human at some point in their life, that's a sort of a signpost that says, you're not only what you think you are.
All I'm going to do is help you remember who you really are and give you some techniques that facilitate the sharpening of that ability. You can begin to practice that on a nightly basis, and as you do it, you will be stunned at how accurate you will become in getting that information. Ritambara Pragya, the level where all things can be known. Everything can be known, past, present, future. What you have just heard, I would say a handful of people on Earth know, even in classified projects. It's highly compartmented. I'm going to share in a moment a few of these sort of techniques. Most people overthink it, but also they don't believe they can do it. And that's the beginning of programming yourself for failure. So what we want to do is hit the reset button, reprogram ourselves for success and for being able to do it. And all I'm going to do is help you remember who you really are and give you some techniques that facilitate the sharpening of that ability. That's really all I can do. The rest you're doing yourself. Sharing right now is key to understanding the psychological and even physical dynamics of consciousness and non-locality and how it can be manifested. The ability to be a seer of a remote place or a remote time into the future. They're all easily accomplished if you understand the science and the fundamental knowledge of consciousness, its nature.
You're not only what you think you are, locked in the frame of your physical form and in this time and place. You're actually connected in consciousness to every point in space and every point in time. And that includes right now, but going back, but going also forward, which is remote viewing into the future. This is something that has been unfortunately sort of relegated to mysticism, and a lot of thinking is that, well, you've got to be somebody living in a cave 50 years by yourself to experience this. This is absolutely a harmful myth that I think ecclesiastical and spiritual leaders, and unfortunately a lot of my scientific brethren, have propagated. That is a damnable lie. You do not have to be in some kind of esoteric ascetic setting to have that experience or to develop them. And so that is something that we have to begin to sort of move beyond this monkey on our shoulders going, oh, I'm just a little dumb thing and I'm just stuck right here on Earth. And it's just, you're telling yourself that lie over and over again. And that becomes its own destiny. Because if you have a different understanding of who and what you are, And that is that you are a conscious being capable of connecting to the field of consciousness that's beyond space and time. The reason that the deeper elements of the intelligence community don't want the public to know is that, first of all, it is extremely efficient spycraft, which they don't want others to have. Secondly, they know that if people understood the power of consciousness, they would be able to completely change the direction of the planet. You can see any place, you can see any point in time. You need to understand that this is your innate capability as a higher intelligent life form. Once you reach a critical mass of intelligence and consciousness, you can understand this and routinely see remote places and see distant times. That's how I think you should begin to think of how your life can be guided and your relationships at work and family can be guided. Very intuitive. Those of you who are critical, remember that there's science and there's objective knowledge and intellect, and then there's the consciousness that can sense and feel and know. And if you develop this ability, you will save lives. And in your normal everyday work, whoever you are, I mean, if you're a teacher and you're dealing with a student, intuiting what that person needs and what you need to teach, you following this? Be with me for a moment. What I would like to do now is just do an experiment taking you through these steps, and you can do this at home. If you're in a group of 3 or 4 people, you know, get a box or a basket, and one person goes out of the room and puts any object in it, and the others have no idea. Now, here are the steps to it. Step 1, if you're going to not just do it on the fly instantly, you go into this quiet state of meditation and forget about targeting what you're remote viewing. Just stick with the process of experiencing the awake mind and do the meditation technique using either the breathing technique or the mantra or both, or whatever fires your rocket. And when you're in a deep, quiet state, instead of guessing what is in the box, just let your mind rest on it and ask to know what it is. You might see it, you might get the word for it, you may get an aspect of it. The key thing is to not intellectualize it or start just guessing like some kind of parlor trick or kindergarten game. And that's what most people do. So you have to kind of be brutally honest with yourself. Am I sensing this or I'm just guessing? Now, initially, you may not know. Your mind may start pulling in all sorts of things. The other thing to understand is that what the mind does, here's the trick, and this is the real art and science of this. When you begin to sense something, you will begin to get something that is an accurate, objectively true remote view data point. And then the mind will start doing the monkey mind thing and leapfrog ahead of the process of just sensing and knowing what it is and filling in the blanks from your memory store. How do you distinguish and discern the difference? Practice, practice. Because the more you practice it, the more you're going to realize when you're doing that and when you're not. And I will say this, if you do this often enough, this technique I just described with a box or something else where you don't know what it is, you'll begin to know what it feels like in your heart, in your gut, when it's an accurate perception. And you'll know what it feels like when it was just something that your mind began to confabulate and make up. Dream time. I mentioned this before you went to bed. You're asleep, but as you're going to sleep, get a journal, keep something by your bedside, and begin to affirm to yourself that you can have lucid dreaming. Be awake within the dream, and you can travel to places and know things in that state. You can begin to practice that on a nightly basis, and as you do it, it'll begin to go up and up and up in accuracy. I have found that if you're in a very deep, relaxed state, or even taking a nap, but you just gently intend as you're going in and out of the dream state or sleep state or in and out of the quiet meditative state to know something. It's an intending. And then just relax and let it flow into you and get yourself out of the way. So get your intellect and ego out of the way. It'll pop in like that.
The other is when you're going to sleep, or mostly when you're waking up. You're coming out of sleep into the waking state, but you're kind of in that drowsy, half awake, half asleep state, but you're rested. At that juncture, the junction between dream and sleep and waking, when you're relaxed, intend to know something, ask to see something, ask to have a problem solved. You will be stunned at how
You all see this slide? Yes. Okay, hold on. I'm removing the lens. And now what do you see?
Sounds like a magician.
Nothing. No thing. Now watch. Wherever I put the glasses, you see an image. That means that what was here, which you see as a blur, is everywhere and everywhere.
This man was one of the most respected neurosurgeons in the world, someone who literally touched the brain with his own hands, Karl Pribram. And he discovered something most people are terrified to even consider. Reality isn't found, it's manufactured.
Most of what's going on in the brain is not the circuits. The circuits just tell you, they transmit the information from one place to another. The real work that's being done is by fine fibers, dendrites and teledendrons, which are branches, very fine branches.
If he was right, then your thoughts are not trapped inside your head. They reach out, they change what you see, they build the world you experience. What follows may permanently change the way you see everything.
From this so-called association cortex, which is sensory specific, however, you do get things operating down into the primary projection areas, changing what's going on at the lateral tunicate and even as far down as brainstem and retina. So when I'm thinking something that has to do with vision, I'm actually changing what's going on in the retina.
Karl Pribram spent his career in operating rooms and university labs, not meditation halls. He went into the brain to fix tumors and trauma, not to question reality. But the more he operated and the more he tested, one question refused to leave him alone. Where exactly is a memory hiding?
I was able to show that there were large sectors in the posterior part of the so-called association area, which were not associative at all in the usual sense of the word, of associating sensory things to each other, but had to do, were sensory specific. And I discovered the ventral part of the temporal lobe being visual. That was always thought to be auditory, and that turned out to be visual. Superior temporal was auditory. The superior parietal, posterior, also going over the medial surface into the cuneus, that essentially was somatosensory. Discovered where the taste area was, anterior to the auditory, the primary taste area, and then the more associative or higher order taste areas in the temporal pole.
It started as a quiet puzzle inside operating rooms and laboratories. Again and again, surgeons removed large parts of the brain. But memories, they didn't neatly vanish the way textbooks insisted they should. A patient could lose the ability to speak smoothly or recognize a face, yet still recall the layout of their childhood home, the smell of a garden, the way their mother laughed. It was as if the memories refused to live in a single place. Before Karl Pribram ever questioned the mystery, another scientist had already spent decades chasing it. His name was Carl Lashley, a man who dedicated nearly 30 years searching for the engram, the physical trace of a memory. He trained rats to run mazes, then cut, burned, and sliced through their brains with clinical precision. He took tiny pieces, large pieces, deep layers, outer layers, yet no matter what he destroyed, no single spot ever held the memory hostage. The animal struggled but never forgot completely. Something about this defied the logic of anatomy. When Pribram later reviewed these experiments and added his own surgical findings, the conclusion hit him with unexpected force.
I've made the large removals trying to find out what agnosias were about, essentially, or frontal lobe lesions, lobotomies were all about, and found something. And then I pursued the findings. And the holographic thing comes really out of the clinical studies that showed that individual memories aren't lost. And we then found that also with smaller lesions in the brain, that individual engrams or memory traces are not lost. That means it's distributed.
Memories aren't isolated files sitting in tidy brain folders. Memories aren't individual memories that can be lost. That means it's distributed. It was like burning the corner of a photograph and still seeing the whole picture printed in the ashes. Whatever the brain was doing, it wasn't acting like a hard drive. It was acting like something else entirely. For years, the problem sat there like an unsolved crime scene. Surgeons could erase tissue, but they could not erase the past. The question haunted Pribram until a completely different field offered an unexpected clue. Holography, a world built not on images, but on interference patterns. Waves overlapping, canceling, and reinforcing until an entire picture is hidden inside a blur of frequencies. Pribram encountered a simple but unsettling fact about holograms. Cut a hologram in half, and the entire image still appears. Diminished, yes, but whole. A perfect echo of Lashley's rats, his own lesion studies, and the stubborn endurance of memories that refuse to die with the tissue around them. Suddenly, Lashley's mystery snapped into focus. Distributed memory, interference patterns, a whole image in every part. The brain wasn't storing snapshots, it was storing patterns. It was weaving reality into waves. The discovery should have ended the mystery, but instead it cracked open another one, far more unsettling than the first. Pribram had set out to understand memory and perception, not to trespass into the territory of quantum physics. Yet the deeper he studied how neurons interacted, not as isolated spikes, but as overlapping fields of activity, the more familiar the mathematics began to look. Long before he arrived, Dennis Gabor had used the same equations to describe how holograms store information. And those equations originally came from the world of uncertainty, wave functions, and quantum events. That alone was unsettling, and it only grew stranger as the patterns repeated themselves.
The Gabor in 1968, we talked about it. I talked about Fourier transforms with him. Says the brain doesn't work on a Fourier transform. It's not, that's the basis of it. That's not the whole thing. But the guy never told me that he'd invented a better way. I had to find that out for myself. And he was that kind of a person. I heard from somebody at Virginia Tech a few years back who was a friend of Gabor's, that Gabor once said, if anybody's going to figure out how the brain works, Carl Pribram. I felt just wonderful. But you know what that man put me through, he and also our friend Don Mackay. I would talk about Fourier transforms and holograms. They said, too simple. It isn't going to work. Never did he tell me that he had figured out in 1946, before he did the hologram, that of these Gabor functions, that the brain can work in terms of quanta of information. That's what, but he never told me, but I did find out.
Pribram found himself facing a comparison he never intended to make. The mathematical descriptions of how neurons interact are very similar to the descriptions of quantum events. He reviewed his data again and again, expecting the resemblance to be superficial, an illusion created by metaphor, but it held. They obey the same rules. It's not just an analogy. He hadn't borrowed equations from physics to decorate a theory. He hadn't tried to force the brain to look mysterious. The data came first, waves of presynaptic potentials overlapping in dendritic fields, and only after mapping them did he see that the mathematics matched what physicists have been using for decades.
So let's look into Lashley's idea of interference patterns, because at least we don't know that it's wrong. We haven't a clue as to what he meant. Lashley didn't have a clue. I talked to him for months about this stuff, and he finally wrote a retraction. He says, I don't know what I mean by interference pattern. Well, within a week, an article came out in, first Nico Spinelli found an article of John Eccles, because one of the problems was, what is a wavefront in the cortex like? What's it caused by? What would that mean? An interference pattern has to be interference among wavefront. Found an article of John Eccles on neurophysiology of imagination. And in it he says, you know, we do study synaptic potentials and all of that at the end of axons, but we only study one at a time. When an axon comes down to dendritic field, it splits, and you have a lot of these presynaptic potential occurring at one time. That can be thought of as a wavefront. And I thought, how stupid. For 10, 15 years, we've been trying to figure out how a wavefront could be created in the brain, and it isn't the kind of thing Köhler was talking about. What's left? And Eccles had it right on. It's not, you don't have to even think of it as a wavefront if you don't want to, but you can. It's a lot of presynaptic potentials, and they set up postsynaptic potentials. They are graded potential changes.
The realization was almost philosophical. It means your brain isn't just like a quantum system in a poetic way. It might be behaving like one in disguise. A system built from probabilities, fields, and distributed patterns hidden beneath the clean lines of anatomy. And if that's true, then reality itself might have another layer you never see. Defocus a lens and you see a blur. Nothing sharp, nothing recognizable. But Pribram said that the blur is essentially a hologram. Contained in that smudge of scattered light is the actual image, waiting to be brought back into focus.
It's a very well-regulated scatter. For instance, if you defocus the lens on a camera so that you don't get the image falling on the image plane, and you have a blur, that blur essentially is a hologram.
Oh.
Because all you have to do is
refocus it. So contained in the blur is the actual image.
That's right, but you don't see it as such.
It was his way of showing that information does not need to appear as form to still be fully present. The brain, he believed, worked the same way. He called this realm the spectral domain, a place where information is stored not as shapes in space, but as frequencies and patterns. The spectral domain is a real phenomenon. It is not just a way of looking at the world. In this domain, the world is not organized the way your eyes tell you it is. Space dissolves into probability. Structure dissolves into waves. Everything is distributed.
The spectral domain, so-called holographic domain, because that's what a hologram is these spots here that have different values. So the silver grains are just a bunch of spots that on a holographic film, that this spectral domain is in fact a real phenomenon. It is not just a way of looking at the world. It has an existence. Everybody will admit that you can look at psychophysical and physiological and physical phenomena either through the spectral way or through space-time, and that they're related by the Fourier transform, but they won't agree that the spectral domain is necessarily there. It's just a way of looking at it, and what is there is just, it's just there. And we have ways of looking at what is there.
This idea echoed the work of physicist David Bohm, who described a hidden level of reality he called the implicate order, a world where everything is folded into everything else, and nothing stands alone. In that order, space and time blur. Location stops being simple. Everything exists everywhere at once, as possibility rather than position. If Pribram was right, your brain may be constantly shifting between this hidden domain and the ordinary world, translating waves into objects and blur into meaning. And if your brain is working in that domain, where exactly do you end and the rest of the universe begin? One question bothered Pribram, even after the hologram insight settled into place. If the brain truly uses something like interference patterns and spectral codes, why would evolution choose such a complicated method? The answer turned out to be surprisingly practical. Why would the brain bother with this spectral domain? Because there, correlations are cheap. In simple terms, the brain can compare patterns far faster in frequency form than in ordinary space. A signal that looks messy and scattered in physical space becomes clean and easy to sort once it's turned into waves. You already see this kind of trick every time a hospital machine builds an image of the body. MRI scans, CAT scans, and most modern image processors work by converting shapes into frequencies, matching patterns quickly, and then flipping the results back into a picture. The brain seems to do its own version of this.
Those of you who work in hospitals know what a CAT scan is, or a magnetic resonance imaging. All of the image processing devices are done in this way. You put a beam through the skull, and it comes out with certain numbers, and another one in different directions. You just add them all together. You first convert them into the spectral domain, into the Fourier domain, and then add them all together, convolve them essentially, or multiply, whatever. It's a sort of a funny mixture between the two. And then do the inverse transform, you've got a beautiful three-dimensional image. So that's why.
As you move through the world, it constantly performs a kind of inverse transform, turning invisible spectral activity into solid objects, edges, colors, and movement. That is how you get object perception. What your eyes receive is only raw data. What you finally experience is the brain's reconstruction. You think you just look around and see the world, but under the hood, your brain is running a high-speed holographic reconstruction, 24 hours a day. And in that reconstruction, something strange happens to the old battle between mind and matter. For centuries, philosophers have argued over a single question. Is the mind separate from the brain, or is it just what the brain does? Pribram believed both views missed something important. He said mind and brain are two different ways of talking about something, realizations of a process. The process comes first, the forms come after. He compared it to a symphony. The same music can live as sheet notes in a book, as a tape in a drawer, as a digital file on a server, or as a live performance filling a concert hall. Different forms, one invisible pattern. None of them is the real symphony on its own, yet each one reveals it.
And you want to get a really good recording of Beethoven's Ninth, and you want to hear it. Well, you just find out that choral is coming in and so on, and they're going to give a performance at Davies Hall. So that's one way you can appreciate. Another one is you can get a tape. Another way is to get a record. Still another is a disc, compact disc. There are all these various ways, or if you're a musician, you might, and if you're a conductor, you might even get the score, right? Now, all of those are realizations of something, aren't they? Of the symphony. If you know how to read music, if you know how to do these things, you can recognize all of this as the Beethoven Symphony. What is the Beethoven Symphony then? See? It's realized in all of these ways.
Your brain is like the hardware. Your conscious experience is like the performance. Both express the same underlying information in different ways. And once you see it this way, the old question of separation begins to lose its force. What if consciousness and matter are just two sides of one song, the universe listening to itself through you? And if that's true, then your memories, your thoughts, even time itself might not be trapped inside your skull. There is a quiet shock buried inside Pribram's work, and it touches your life far more directly than any equation or laboratory experiment. When you remember your childhood bedroom, you're not pulling out a file stored in some hidden drawer of the brain. You're rebuilding a world from interference patterns, the same way a hologram can rebuild an image from scattered waves. Every detail you recall, the color of the curtains, the warmth of the light, the way the air felt, is reconstructed in the moment. Memory is not retrieval. Memory is creation. And it doesn't stop with remembering. You don't just see the world, you render it. The world you experience is assembled by your brain from raw signals and spectral patterns. What you call reality is a reconstruction made possible by a system that never stops translating, comparing, and shaping. If your brain works holographically, then you are not just a spectator sitting behind your eyes. You're part of the process that makes reality appear the way it does for you. You participate in every perception, every memory, every moment of awareness.
The hologram is really the big breakthrough that was made in the early 60s,
into sort of a window on another way of looking at things. And not only looking at things, but when you look through the window, you see an order in the universe that's different from our ordinary experience. That doesn't mean we don't experience the universe. When we're listening to music, we sort of get the feel that something is wrong, the beat isn't quite right, and so on and so forth. You all see this slide? Yeah. Okay.
This man was one of the most respected neurosurgeons in the world.
you.